On today's episode, I'll be talking about a letter that Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez sent to Puerto Rico's Financial Oversight and Management Board. Let's begin. Hi, my name is Andrew Mercado Vasquez, and welcome to the PRF Review, the show based on the podcast Puerto Rico Forward, which you can listen to on iTunes, Spotify, all major platforms, and you can continue supporting through Patreon. Thank you so much to all of you that have supported us. We're working because you allow it. Thank you so much. So let's just jump right into the subject matter of today's episode. Earlier this week, a website called Common Dreams published an article by Ewan Higgins, and it's titled, "Because Puerto Rico Must No Longer Be Treated as a Colony, Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez lead demand to end painful austerity." Please Google this article, read the article, and then read the letter, and figure out for yourself if the narrative carried over correctly. So, I'm gonna use the article to basically provide a summary of what the letter actually is. I'm quoting here. Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez are leading an effort to end austerity in Puerto Rico and let the people of the island territory determine their own path forward. Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez were joined in the effort by 11 other Democrats, all of whom signed a letter demanding the end of the Financial Oversight and Management Board's control over the economic decisions of the island. End of quote. The other 11 Democrats are the following. I'm going to list them. Senators Elizabeth Warren, Jeff Merkley, Kirsten Gillibrand, Richard Blumenthal, Cory Booker, and Robert Menendez. And Representatives Pramila, Hayapal, Jesus Chuy Garcia, Adriano Espaillat, and Mark Bocan. I apologize if I mispronounce any of those names. So, let's go right into the letter. Let's look at this letter. I'm going to quote from it. And before I do that, a little bit of background. The letter is always talking about some historic mobilization that occurred. And in response to that mobilization, they're writing this letter. So, just a quick summary of what happened. Earlier this summer, we had huge amounts of people going into the streets protesting. And what was the main objective? They wanted the then Governor Ricardo Rosselló Nevares out of office. Wanted him to be removed, be through impeachment or his resignation, but they didn't want him there. Now, one of the reasons why this happened was because private chat was leaked in which the governor, with other cabinet members and private citizens, engaged in extremely homophobic and offensive language and just childish, horrible behavior like body shaming. And basically, it was the spark, it was the accelerant to a situation that had been brewing for one or two generations before. So the mobilization and the protests weren't necessarily a direct result of this chat, but rather a overall simmering frustration that is the result of living in a place where your decisions don't determine your future. And that's what colonialism really is. So essentially, that's the mobilization the letter refers to. And I'm going to quote from the letter now. Page 1 states the following. It is clear, however, that this historic inspiring mobilization goes far beyond one individual. The people of Puerto Rico seek democratic control over their future and call not only for the resignation of Governor Rosselló, but for the end of the Financial Oversight and Management Board's control over the economic decisions of the island. We agree with the demands of the Puerto Rican people who came into the streets. Puerto Rico must no longer be treated as a colony. End of quote. Okay, so that paragraph basically tells us what motivates the letter. Let's read something else. I'm quoting again. During this moment of popular struggle for responsive and legitimate governance, we urge you to reverse the crippling austerity imposed on Puerto Rico. At a minimum, the uncertain process of succession and the fragility of Puerto Rico's political institutions must not be exploited to strengthen the unelected board's power over the day-to-day lives of the people of Puerto Rico. End of quote. So they're talking directly to the Financial Oversight and Management Board. And it's interesting that using such a clear demand of the people in which they were demanding the end of the Financial Oversight and Management Board, these politicians signing this letter actually give the board an alternative in which they say, well, if you're not going to leave, at least take it easy. At least, don't don't be too abusive. Don't try to exploit the current situation. And I find that to be a little bit distasteful. If you're going to ask someone to leave, you don't give them another alternative. You just tell them to leave straight out. So I found that a little bit distasteful. But let's continue. Now, the letter actually provides two specific moments where I do agree with what they're saying, and they're following. First off, they say the following, and I'm quoting. Additionally, we are troubled by increasing evidence of the board's internal mismanagement and conflicts of interest. The board's own budget, paid for by Puerto Rico's taxpayers, amounts to $300 million a year, an astounding figure for an institution promoting far-reaching austerity. By comparison, the U.S. Congressional Budget Office's annual budget for providing economic analysis of the entire United States is $50.7 million. If the CBO's budget matched that of the board's as a share of the economy it is tasked with analyzing, it would receive $85 billion annually. We understand that the vast majority of the board's funds go towards fees for lawyers and consultants who are not subject to any disclosure requirements in what appears to be blatant disregard for conflict of interest norms. McKinsey and Company, which has received more than $50 million in advisory fees from the board, is also a holder of Puerto Rico's debt and stands to make millions on any potential restructuring deal for investors. End of quote. So in those two moments, I have to give it to them. These 11 Democrats and Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez really did bring good points to the table. First off, it's ridiculous that this board that preaches austerity doesn't practice it themselves. And second of all, this board is just behaving in such a horrible way of mismanagement and conflict of interest that it's obvious. You have a consulting group that has an interest in the very debt that you're charged with managing. So it's a situation in which the board itself just is completely discredited by their own actions. Okay, so the letter does have those 2 points in its favor, and I've been on record saying that we need to eliminate the board, the Oversight and Management Board, and we also have to eliminate these austerity measures that are hurting the economy and hurting the people of Puerto Rico. That's true. Yes, I support those things, but it's a little bit difficult to be swayed by the letter's apparent goodwill or good faith when it basically sidesteps the main issue that allows the Puerto Rico Financial Oversight and Management Board to exist in the first place, which is Puerto Rico's status. If you didn't have Puerto Rico's current colonial status, you wouldn't be able to have a Financial Oversight and Management Board. Okay, so that's the point that I think is just completely missed by this letter. Another thing, although the letter does use the word colony, which is a great thing, it's a step in the right direction. It doesn't say Commonwealth, it says colony. It uses the word colony. The word colony is being used to describe how Puerto Rico is being treated, and I think that's a misdirection. People that read this letter and aren't well versed on the Puerto Rico issue might read that as language that describes how Puerto Rico is being treated, when it should be used to describe what Puerto Rico is. Puerto Rico is a colony. It's not being treated like a colony. No. It's being treated as what it is, a colony. Okay? We need to continue driving that point home. People don't understand that that's what Puerto Rico is. First off, because they call it Commonwealth so often. And second of all, because of things like this, where they use the word colony or colonialism in such a way where they're not really identifying Puerto Rico as such, but describing how it's treated. And I think that, for all the reasons I already mentioned, is a huge mistake. Because if you don't identify Puerto Rico as a place where the status is the problem, then you won't try to address that problem. So we need to identify Puerto Rico as a colony, because colonialism is what correctly describes what Puerto Rico is. It's not just what it's being treated like. Okay, so in my opinion, if these politicians had any intent to use this letter as a starting point to finally address the Puerto Rico issue, they failed. Advocating for better treatment under colonial rule might allow them to sleep better at night, but it will do nothing to solve the underlying colonial misery we live on the archipelago. Finally solving Puerto Rico's status issue is the only path forward. Period. That's going to be it for today. As always, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. Y que viva Puerto Rico.